Today I'm talking about Enneagram 6. I'm basically continuing my series with respect to the 9 Enneagram types and explaining the main characteristics, fears, and motivations of each of the types. So today the focus will be on Enneagram 6. All about that in the next few minutes. If you haven't already, please don't forget to like and subscribe, and let's dive in. So, Enneagram 6 is part of the Thinking Triad. Last time, a few weeks ago, I talked about Enneagram 5, also part of the Thinking Triad, and today I'm discussing one of the other types that is part of the same intelligence center, or triad as we call it. What the types from the Thinking Triad have in common is that they are all trying to get away from anxiety or fear and focus on finding safety and security. This is the main theme that runs through this group, through this triad, but each of the 3 types does it in a different way. Each of the types has a different strategy of tackling this. So for Enneagram 6, the focus is finding safety and security outside of themselves because they feel like inside of themselves they are unable to provide that. This is why the type is also called the Loyalist. Interestingly, because to a certain extent, Enneagram 6 tries to maintain a level of loyalty, reliability, dependability in order to create structures in their lives where this is kind of the main theme. This is kind of the most important aspect. So basically, Enneagram 6 will say, well, I'm going to be here for the people that I believe are important to me, my security systems, perhaps my family, or perhaps my coworkers, or perhaps my community, or my group of friends, or whatever. Because by doing that, I ensure that there will be a level of back and forth reliability, dependability, loyalty. They focus on being the ones that people can go to, but in a slightly different way as compared to Enneagram 2. Enneagram 2 will say, oh, I'm trying to help other people to anticipate their needs because I'm afraid that otherwise I will not be loved. Whereas Enneagram 6 has a different focus, and the focus is I'm trying to be supportive, to be dependable, to be loyal, to be the ones that other people can kind of rely on at work or in their personal life, because this is how I think I will find my safety and security. Like Enneagram 2, Enneagram 6 is also a compliant type. So this means that it is very important for this type to make sure that they meet the expectations of other people, that they do what they promise that they will do, that they will manage to keep their commitments to other people. This is something really, really important to this type. Again, Enneagram 6, if we look at it from another classification perspective, besides being a thinking triad type, besides being a compliant type, it is also a reactive type, like 4 and like 8. This means that when it comes to emotions, Enneagram 6 is very likely to react strongly to things that happen to them, whether they are positive or negative. Enneagram 6 is likely to have a strong emotional reaction. If something good happens, they want to be happy about it, and they want to see that other people are happy about it. And if something bad happens, they also want to react strongly to it in an emotional way, and they expect other people to also get worked up about it, to also get upset about it, to also suffer about it, if we say it quote unquote. So as a pointer to kind of differentiate between Enneagram 6 and Enneagram 2, which sometimes people struggle with, is their relationship to emotions. Enneagram 6, being a reactive type, is much more likely to show strong emotional reactions to both positive and negative things and expect the same from other people. Whereas Enneagram 2, being a positive outlook type, is more likely to want to focus on the positive emotions in themselves and in other people, with a tendency to neglect problems until later on in time when these problems might become too big to avoid or too big to neglect in a way. Anyway, getting back to Enneagram 6. So I talked in general terms about the fears, the motivations, the general characteristics of this type. Now, I would also like to look at the direction of integration and direction of disintegration for Enneagram 6. So first of all, when it comes to disintegration. So how this type behaves in times of stress, in times of, difficulties. Enneagram 6 will move to Enneagram 3, and it will take some of the negative characteristics associated with Enneagram 3. This means that they are more likely to become workaholics. Enneagram 6 will generally want to focus on, fulfilling their responsibilities, meeting the expectations of other people, and so on and so forth. However, when they are very, very stressed, they are likely to take this to an extreme and become obsessed with performing, to become obsessed with achievement, similar to what Enneagram 3 normally does, which is why they can become really obsessed with work, making sure that they do everything, that they are there to impress other people. Because generally Enneagram 6 is not a type that cares as much about their image as types 2, 3, and 4 do, because they are part of the feeling triad. But in times of stress, in times of disintegration, Enneagram 6 will care much more about how they look in the eyes of other people, what their performance looks like, whether they are being good enough at their work, or whether they have outstanding achievements. This will matter much more to them, and people will notice this in their behavior, that they will be much more expressive about it and much more stressed about it as well. On the other hand, in times of integration, in times of health, Enneagram 6 will start looking like a healthy version of Enneagram 9. And why? Well, because from the general worrying and anxiety-driven type, we will now notice a much more peaceful individual. Enneagram 6 will learn that it's okay to not always think about what could go wrong and to prepare for those negative scenarios in the future. And instead, they will bring this healthy attitude of the 9 of let's relax, let's be present, let's enjoy things as they are. Let's be calm, let's be peaceful. Let's feel our presence right here, right now. Let's connect to the essence of things rather than always being in our head, thinking, analyzing, preparing, worrying, etc., etc. So this is a way in which Enneagram 6 can really, really grow, can really develop certain characteristics, and can really learn from the Enneagram 9 that is more peaceful, more connected to their essence. Of course, in a healthy state of mind, in a more balanced, integrated state of mind. Okay, so now that we looked at the general characteristics of Enneagram 6, and we also looked at what happens in times of integration and in times of disintegration, I would also like to go back to the idea of worrying and being anxious, because I mentioned this a few times in the video. And what I want to say is that sometimes, depending on the instinctual variant or depending on the subtype, Enneagram 6 will not always look as a very anxiety-driven type. For example, the one-on-one or sexual type, subtype of the 6, which is also known as the counter type, is less likely to display very strong anxiety-driven behaviors, because they are more likely to want to move against their fear, which is why they are called a counterphobic type. So in this case, even though the individual will still have the same fears, motivations, core characteristics, this anxiety-driven behavior is more likely to be hidden or less likely to be obvious as compared to the other type. So when you're looking at your type, or when you're looking at the type of other people, you might want to take this into consideration as well. Good, so these are my thoughts on the general characteristics and the general description of Enneagram 6. What else would you add? What else do you think is important to talk about? Let me know in the comments below. And as always, thanks a lot for watching this video. Thanks a lot for being with me. And see you next week with another video on typology.